The package arrived on a Tuesday, which should have been my first clue that something was wrong. My birthday wasn't until Friday. I was sitting in the rec room at Forward Operating Base Rattlesnake, somewhere in the dusty armpit of Afghanistan, when Sergeant Mills dropped the brown paper-wrapped box on the table in front of me. Mail call, Cooper. Looks like someone back home remembers you exist. I recognized my sister Emma's handwriting immediately, those looping, careful letters she'd perfected in Catholic school. But as I reached for the package, a gnarled hand shot out and caught my wrist. "Hold on there, son." I looked up into the weathered face of Grandpa Ned, our unit's oldest member at 63. Most people didn't know why a man his age was still in active service, embedded with a special operations unit in one of the most dangerous regions in the world. Hell, I didn't know either. But Grandpa Ned had a way of appearing exactly where he needed to be, exactly when he needed to be there. His ice blue eyes, sharp as broken glass, despite the crow's feet surrounding them, fixed on the package with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Don't open that yet," he said quietly, his voice carrying that gravelly quality that came from decades of barking orders and smoking cigars. "Take it to Commander Price. Now. It's just a birthday package from my sister." Michael, he never used my first name unless it was serious. Trust an old man's instincts. Something ain't right about this. The rec room had gone silent. Corporal Davies paused mid-push-up. Even Mills, who never took anything seriously, had stopped grinning. I picked up the package, suddenly aware of its weight, maybe 3 pounds, the size of a shoebox. It didn't rattle when I tilted it. Through the paper, I could feel something soft, like fabric, with harder objects underneath. Grandpa Ned walked with me to Commander Price's office, his combat boots clicking against the concrete floor with the steady rhythm of someone who'd been marching for longer than I'd been alive. He moved like a man 40 years younger, his posture military perfect, his presence commanding respect without saying a word. Commander Price looked up from his desk, his expression shifting from irritation at being interrupted to concern when he saw Grandpa Ned's face. "Sir," I said, "Grandpa Ned thinks there's something wrong with my mail." Price studied the package, then looked at Ned. Some unspoken communication passed between them, the kind of understanding that comes from shared experiences I couldn't begin to imagine. "Set it down, Cooper," Price ordered, gently. I placed the package on his desk like it was made of eggshells. Grandpa Ned leaned forward, his calloused fingers hovering over the wrapping without touching it. "The postmark's wrong," he said. "That's supposedly from Virginia Beach, where the sister lives, but look at the date stamp. It was processed in Kabul, day before yesterday." My blood went cold. "That's impossible. Emma wouldn't." "Your sister didn't send this," Price interrupted. He was already on his radio, calling for the EOD team. "Cooper, when's the last time you actually spoke to your sister?" I had to think about it. We'd exchanged emails a few weeks ago, but actual conversation, video call, maybe 2 months ago. She said she'd send something for my birthday, but you never told her exactly where you were stationed, Grandpa Ned finished. And even if you had, she wouldn't have the address for this fob. It's classified. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Someone had intercepted my mail, or worse, fabricated it entirely. Someone knew my sister's name, her handwriting, enough personal details to make it convincing. The EOD team arrived within minutes. Sergeant Kowalski and his partner, Chen, both moving with the careful deliberation of people who'd seen what explosives could do to human bodies. "Everyone out except essential personnel," Kowalski ordered. "I'm staying," I said. "Son, if that thing has my name on it, I'm staying," I insisted, probably stupidly. Grandpa Ned's hand settled on my shoulder. "We both stay." Price nodded, though he didn't look happy about it. The 4 of us watched as Kowalski and Chen x-rayed the package, studied thermal imaging, ran every scan in their arsenal. "No explosive signatures," Chen finally announced. "No wires, no traditional trigger mechanisms." Open it, Price ordered. Kowalski cut the paper carefully, peeling it back to reveal a simple cardboard box. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, were items that made my heart ache. A photo of Emma and me from last Christmas, a packet of my favorite beef jerky, a paperback copy of the thriller I'd mentioned wanting to read, and a knitted scarf in my unit's colors. It looks clean, Kowalski said, confused. But Grandpa Ned was shaking his head, that unsettling intensity back in his eyes. He picked up the scarf, running it through his fingers. Then he found what he was looking for, a small, nearly invisible bump in the knitting. There, he said, pointing. Chen extracted it with tweezers, a micro SD card, barely bigger than a fingernail, waterproofed and sealed in plastic. The room went silent. That, Price said slowly, is a data dead drop. Someone's using Cooper as an unwitting courier, Grandpa Ned added. Package gets delivered, he opens it in the rec room where anyone could see, maybe leaves it on his bunk. Someone else picks up the SD card later, no one the wiser. But who, I asked, my mind reeling, who would know enough to fake this? Grandpa Ned and Price exchanged another look. That, Price said, is what we're going to find out. He turned to me. Cooper, I need you to think carefully. Have you noticed anyone taking unusual interest in your personal life? Anyone asking about your family, your mail, your birthday? I racked my brain, but came up empty. The fob wasn't large, maybe 100 personnel at any given time, but in that number were special forces, intelligence contractors, local interpreters, support staff. Any one of them could have access to enough information to pull this off. What's on the card? I asked. Chen had already plugged it into an isolated laptop. His face went pale as code scrolled across the screen. These are movement schedules, he whispered, convoy routes, safe house locations, informant identities. He looked up at Price, and I'd never seen a grown man look so terrified. Sir, this is everything, our entire operational intelligence for the next 2 months. The implications crashed down on all of us. If this information reached the Taliban, people would die. Not just our people, local assets, families who'd helped us, entire networks would be compromised. Lockdown, Price barked into his radio. Full base lockdown, now no one in or out. I want every person on this fob accounted for and confined to quarters. This is not a drill. Alarms began blaring outside. Through the window, I could see soldiers scrambling to their positions. Grandpa Ned was studying the photo of Emma and me, his brow furrowed. This picture, he said, when was it taken? Last Christmas, I was on leave. Look at the background. I looked closer. Behind us, barely visible through the window in the photo, was a figure, someone watching us from across the street, their face obscured, but their posture somehow familiar. That's surveillance, Grandpa Ned said flatly. Someone's been watching your family, Cooper, for months. The room spun. I need to call Emma, I need to. No, Price said firmly. We can't risk tipping anyone off. For all we know, your family's communications are compromised. If whoever's behind this realizes we've found the dead drop, they might. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. For the next 6 hours, the fob became a pressure cooker. Price and the intelligence team worked to trace the package's actual origin. Grandpa Ned, with a security clearance I hadn't known he possessed, coordinated with someone back in the States, someone with enough pull to put protective surveillance on Emma without alerting local law enforcement. I sat in Price's office, feeling useless and terrified as the pieces came together. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of our interpreters, Hamid, a quiet man in his 50s who'd been with the unit for 2 years, didn't show up for the mandatory accountability check. They found him in the supply depot trying to access the communications system. In his pocket was an encrypted phone. His confession came quickly once he understood we had the SD card and his network was burned. He'd been compromised 6 months ago, his family threatened, his daughter held hostage. The Taliban had promised to release her if he cooperated. They'd fed him the intelligence to plant on the card. They'd researched me, my family, my habits. They'd created the perfect delivery mechanism, exploiting the one thing soldiers always trust, mail from home. But they hadn't counted on Grandpa Ned. Later, after the MPs had taken Hamid away and the base had stood down from lockdown, I found Grandpa Ned on the roof of the barracks, smoking one of his forbidden cigars and watching the sunset paint the desert red. "How did you know?" I asked. He took a long drag, the ember glowing in the twilight. "I didn't, not for certain, but I've been doing this for 43 years, son. You learn to trust the little things that don't feel right. The timing was off. The postmark was wrong, and mostly," he paused, "I recognized the type of operation. I've run dead drops myself back in the day. Different war, same tactics." "You saved lives today," I said. He shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Just paying attention, most important skill in this business." "Why are you really here, Grandpa Ned? No one your age should be." "I'm here," he interrupted, his voice soft but firm, "because I've been doing this since before your daddy was born. I'm here because old soldiers know things young ones haven't learned yet. I'm here because wars don't end just because you get old. They just change shape." He looked at me then, and I saw something ancient and sad in those ice-blue eyes. "And I'm here because maybe, just maybe, I can keep a few more kids from making the mistakes I made when I was young and stupid." We sat in silence for a while, watching the desert swallow the sun. "Your sister's safe," he finally said. "FBI picked up a surveillance team watching her apartment. They'll keep her protected until we can clean up this network." Relief flooded through me so intensely, I nearly fell over. "Happy early birthday, Cooper," Grandpa Ned said, stubbing out his cigar. "Sorry about the gift." I laughed, surprising myself. Best birthday present I never got. 3 days later, my actual birthday, a real package arrived from Emma, verified, scanned, and cleared. Inside was a simple card that read, "Some FBI agents visited me. They wouldn't explain why. Are you okay? Love you, be safe." I wrote back, telling her I was fine, that I'd explain everything when I got home. I didn't tell her about the close call, or about Grandpa Ned's instincts, or about how a tiny moment of attention had prevented a catastrophe. Some stories, I realized, were better told in person. But I kept the photo, the one with the figure in the background. A reminder that in war, the enemy isn't always in front of you. Sometimes they're watching from the shadows, waiting for you to let your guard down, exploiting the very things that make us human. Our love for family, our trust in familiar things, our need for connection to home. And sometimes, when you're lucky, you have someone like Grandpa Ned watching your back, someone old enough to have seen every trick, fought every battle, and learned the hard way that survival isn't about the biggest gun or the fastest reflexes. Sometimes it's just about paying attention.